At 6:45 a.m., the janitor's cart squeaked softly down the polished hallway of Roosevelt High. The school was just waking up, but Evelyn Brooks had been scrubbing floors since dawn. 63 years old, slim, stooped, and dressed in her faded uniform, she moved slowly, because arthritis made everything hurt, but with care, because pride still mattered. She was bent over a mop, wiping away muddy footprints, when she heard the sound. Sharp, heavy footsteps, deliberate and loud. Then came the shove. A teenage boy, tall, blonde, smirking first into the wall. His name was Chase Delacroix, and he was no ordinary kid. He was the son of the school's largest private donor, heir to a local real estate empire, and entitled beyond reason. Behind him, 3 other boys burst into laughter. "This floor's cleaner than your face, old lady," Chase sneered as he dragged his sneakers through the wet floor she'd just cleaned. "What's the point of mopping if the dirt—" Evelyn didn't flinch. Her brown eyes locked on his with a calm so still it almost felt dangerous. "I'm doing my job," she said. "But what you're doing is wrong." "Oh, yeah?" he scoffed. "And who are you to talk about right and wrong?" He didn't know. None of them did. Yeah. They didn't know this woman had once saved the very man who now wrote the checks that kept this school standing. They didn't know she'd once raised a child not her own, loved him, fed him, sang him to sleep, only to lose him in the cruelest of ways. They didn't know that child had grown up to become one of the most powerful men in the city. And they definitely didn't know he was about to walk back into her life. When a teacher witnessed the assault and reported it, Evelyn thought maybe, just this once, justice would come. But what happened next would shatter her faith in fairness and reignite a storm buried for decades. Because when the boy's father was called to the school, he looked Evelyn straight in the eyes and said 5 words that would change everything. "Fire her, she's not worth it." But if she's not worth it, why does he keep watching her from his car? What secret is he hiding, and why did he once call her Mama? He watched her again that morning. From the tinted windows of a sleek black BMW parked across the street, Gregory Delacroix sat in silence. He wore a tailored grey suit, but his face was tight, unreadable. His fingers tapped the steering wheel, but his eyes never left the woman bending over a trash bin, sorting through soda cans like they were silver coins. Evelyn? The name still scraped against something raw in his chest. She hadn't seen him yet. Or maybe she had, and she simply chose not to look. That was always her way. Quiet strength, steady eyes, and a silence that could crush you. Gregory clenched his jaw. 30 years ago, she'd called him her son. Now she didn't even speak his name. And maybe she shouldn't. Because back then, in a cramped one-bedroom apartment smelling of lavender and laundry detergent, she had sung him lullabies and kissed his scraped knees. Back then, he was just Gregor, a foster child with no last name and 1,000 questions. Evelyn had been everything. Mother, protector, lighthouse in a storm, until the day she vanished. No note, no goodbye, just a visit from 2 strangers in suits, and then he was placed into the cold embrace of a wealthy white family. They gave him their name, their rules, their legacy, but not their love. He learned quickly. Emotions were weakness, obedience was currency, and silence was survival. He had built a life on that silence, one promotion after another, one real estate deal at a time, until he was a name printed on hospital wings and school gymnasiums. Gregory Delacroix, the man who never made mistakes. Except for one. Evelyn had not vanished. She had been erased by them. A knock on his car window yanked him out of the memory. It was his assistant, Julia. "Sir, the school board's on line 3. They want a statement." Gregory looked at her, then back at Evelyn, who had just stumbled while lifting a bag too heavy for her fragile frame. "No statement," he said flatly. Juliet blinked. "But your son, Chase, is in hot water over this janitor thing. If we don't take control of the narrative—" "She's not a janitor," Gregory said. "I'm sorry." He stepped out of the car. The morning sun caught in his silver hair, but his face was unreadable. "Cancel my meetings. I need to speak with her." Across the street, Evelyn had noticed him now. She froze. Their eyes met. For a moment, time collapsed. She saw not the man in the suit, but the boy who used to crawl into her lap during thunderstorms. The boy who whispered, "Mama, don't leave me." And Gregory, he saw what he'd buried under decades of ambition. The woman who had loved him before he ever had anything to offer. But before he could cross the street, something shattered the moment. A bottle flew past Evelyn's head, smashing against the dumpster behind her. A voice yelled, "You missed a spot, trash lady," followed by teenage laughter. Grace, standing in the school parking lot with two friends, his phone raised, recording, "Smile for the camera, Grandma Garbage." Gregory's blood went ice cold. And he ran, not walked, not marched. He ran right past the shocked assistants, across the street, into the chaos, toward a son who had no idea the storm he had just unleashed. Because this time, Mama wasn't the one get thrown away. Chase. Gregory's voice cracked through the air like a whip. The boy flinched, his phone still in hand, the mocking grin frozen mid-smirk. His friends backed away instantly, sensing a shift they didn't understand, but feared instinctively. Gregory strode up, towering over his son. His voice was low now, deadly calm. "Delete the video." Chase blinked. "What that? I was just..." The boy hesitated. A second too long. Gregory snatched the phone out of his hand, thumbed through the screen, and erased it in one swift motion. Chase stood stunned, watching the man he'd always seen as untouchable, controlled, corporate, cool. Now, shaking with something that looked a lot like fury, and maybe even shame. "What is wrong with you?" Gregory hissed. "Do you know who she is?" "She's just some homeless lady," Chase muttered. "Why are you acting like she's your grandmother?" The silence dropped like a bolt. Chase's mouth opened, then shut. "What? What are you talking about?" Gregory didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward Evelyn, who was still frozen by the dumpster, her hands trembling from the shock of everything. For a moment, she looked like she might collapse. Gregory rushed to her side. "Are you okay?" he asked, reaching for her arm. He flinched. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," she whispered, tears welling but not falling. "I just needed the cans, that's all. I didn't mean—" "You didn't do anything wrong," Gregory said, his voice cracking. "I did." He looked at Chase, then back at Evelyn. "I spent years hating you," he confessed, the words like knives in his throat. "I believed something that was never true. I thought you sold me. I thought you gave me up for money." Evelyn closed her eyes. The wound was still raw. And in another voice cut through the moment. "You never told him?" They all turned. An older black man had appeared behind the gate, leaning heavily on a cane. His suit was worn but clean, his face weathered but kind. Evelyn gasped. "Pastor Levy?" He nodded. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't stay silent anymore." And Gregory narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" "I'm the man who delivered you to your new family," Levi said. "And I'm the man who told you a lie." "A lie?" Gregory stared. "You were crying so hard you wouldn't let go of Evelyn. You begged not to leave her, but she had nothing. No job, no money, barely food. She came to us desperate, asking if we could find you a better home. She refused to take a dime. I thought it'd be easier if you hated her. I told you she sold you. I thought I was doing the right thing." Gregory's knees nearly gave out. "He built my whole life on that lie," he said, almost laughing. "All this time, I thought I wasn't wanted." "I wanted you," Evelyn whispered, voice breaking. "You were the only thing I ever wanted." And then everything hit. The years, the silence, the hatred. Gregory sank to his knees. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'm so damn sorry." Chase stood behind them, stunned. His father, the Iron Man, the untouchable businessman, was crying in the street like a boy who had just lost everything. Because in a way he had. And yet, he had also found something. But would it be too late to fix what had been broken for so long? Or could the truth finally do what years of silence never could? Or that heal? That question echoed in Gregory's mind as he sat silently beside Evelyn on the bench behind the church, just a few feet from where she used to bring him as a boy. His expensive slacks were stained with dust now, his designer shoes scuffed from kneeling on the sidewalk, but he didn't care. He had just wept in front of strangers, in front of his son, in front of the woman he once believed had discarded him like trash, and she had wiped his tears with the same hands that once braided his hair, the same hands that used to press against his fevered forehead through the night, whispering, "Mama's here, baby, Mama's here." And all this time she'd still been here, just never close enough to say it out loud. Evelyn's hands were thinner now, her veins more visible, her grip weaker, but when she reached for his it was still the same, the warmth, the stillness, the quiet power of her love. "I used to walk by your building," she said softly, not looking at him. Not to see you, I never dared, but just to feel near. Gregory looked at her, tears burning again. Why didn't you say something? She gave a small, sad smile. Would you have listened? He looked away. No, he whispered. I wouldn't have. Long silence passed between them, full of regret, but also something else. The slow mending of something ancient and broken. Suddenly, the church doors creaked open behind them. It was Pastor Levy again, holding something in his hands. A faded cardboard box. I kept this, he said. Didn't know if I should have, but something told me not to throw it away. He handed it to Overling. She opened the flaps carefully. Inside were old drawings, a worn-out teddy bear missing an eye, and a plastic fire truck with faded red paint. Gregory gasped. I remember this, he said, picking up the toy. I used to sleep with this thing. You wouldn't go anywhere without it, Evelyn smiled. You once tried to baptize it in the toilet. They both laughed, a real laugh, warm and broken at the edges. Then at the bottom of the box, Gregory found something else. And folded, yellowed with time, addressed in shaky handwriting. To my granary. In case one day you want to know. His hands trembled as he opened it. Evelyn froze. You wrote this? He asked. I did, she said, but I never sent it. Inside, the words were raw, unpolished, but filled with truth. I didn't give you up because I didn't want it. I gave you up because I had nothing to give. No food, no heat, no medicine. I would have watched you die slowly in my arms. And I couldn't. I couldn't let my baby starve, just so I wouldn't be alone. I chose your future, even if it meant losing you forever. If you hate me for that, I understand. But if you ever wonder whether I loved you, I did. More than I loved my own life. He had already covered his mouth. And for the second time that day, he cried. Chase, who had quietly followed them from a distance, stood frozen behind a tree, his phone still in his pocket but untouched now. He'd meant to record more, thinking maybe he'd get something wild to show his friends. But what he saw shattered something inside him. His father, broken, his grandmother, kind, the story he thought he knew, upside down. He stepped forward slowly. John, he said. Gregory turned, startled. Chase looked unsure, ashamed, and far too grown for his 15 years. I didn't know, he whispered, about any of this. Emery stood, wiping his face. Neither did I. There was a beat of silence, then Chase looked at her. I was awful to you, he said. I'm so sorry, Grandma. Evelyn's lips trembled. She opened her arms. Chase walked in, unsure at first, but then fell into her embrace like a child who finally understood what a family meant. In that moment, 3 generations stood, wrapped in something deeper than forgiveness. The truth was healing. It was love that had never truly died, only been buried by time and silence. Just then, Pastor Levi cleared his throat. There's a Sunday potluck about to start in the church hall, he said with a wink. You all hungry? Evelyn laughed, wiping her cheeks. I never say no to a biscuit. Gregory chuckled. Neither did I, apparently. As they walked back inside, side by side, people glanced their way. Some stared, some smiled. But none of it mattered, because this time Evelyn Brooks didn't walk behind them. She walked between them, hand in hand with the son she'd never stopped loving, and the grandson who now knew exactly what that love looked like. That Sunday evening, for the first time in decades, Gregory Delacroix didn't return to his penthouse, or his boardroom, or his world of glass and steel. He stayed at the small house on Mulberry Street, a humble brick cottage Pastor Levi had turned into a halfway home for seniors with nowhere else to go. Evelyn had chosen to return there, not to the mansion. Money doesn't fix memories, she told him gently as she set down a pot of stew for the others in the house. But kindness makes them bearable. Gregory stayed quiet. He was no longer the man who had people open doors for him. He was the man learning how to knock. That night he couldn't sleep. He walked past the room where Evelyn slept. Door cracked open, soft breathing in the dark. A patchwork quilt lay over her, the same one she used when he was 5. How had she kept it? Down the hall he passed an old mirror, and he froze. The man staring back at him looked older, yes, but it wasn't the grey hair or the wrinkles that struck him. It was the emptiness behind his own eyes. For all the buildings with his name on them, for all the headlines he'd owned, he realized now he hadn't lived. He had performed, he had chased titles, he had hoarded status, all because, deep down, he thought he had to earn love to replace the love he thought he'd lost. And it hits him like thunder. You already had it, you always had it, and you threw it away. The next morning, Gregory disappeared. Evelyn awoke to find a note on the table. There's something I need to do, for both of us. I'll be back. Love, Greg. 3 days passed, no call, no text. Evelyn tried not to worry, but her stomach knotted with dread. What if this had all been temporary? What if the man he had shown her was just a flash of guilt, gone now like smoke? Then on the 4th day she heard a knock on the door. When she opened it, a camera flash hit her eyes. And porters, dozens of them. Behind them, Gregory stood, flanked by Chase and 2 men in dark suits. He stepped forward, eyes locked on her. "Mum," he said, voice firm, "this is yours." He turned to the reporters. "I'd like to make a statement." Evelyn's hand shook. "Gregory, what are you doing?" He turned to her, tears glistening. "What I should have done 20 years ago." He faced the cameras. "I'm Gregory Delacroix, CEO of Delacroix Development, son of Evelyn Brooks." Gasps. Flashbulbs. "I was taken from my mother when I was 9, based on a lie that stole years from both of us. I was told she sold me, that she abandoned me, that she didn't care." He paused, breath unsteady. All of that was wrong. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the letter, the one she'd written but never sent. "She gave me away to save me. She sacrificed everything, and I repaid her with silence, shame, and rejection. That ends today." Murmur spread through the crowd. "From this moment on, I am transferring 25% of my company's community housing initiative to be managed in my mother's name. The Evelyn Brooks Foundation will focus on supporting displaced foster children, single mothers, and senior care programs." The crowd buzzed louder. "I built my empire on foundations I didn't understand, but now I do. I was raised by love disguised as struggle, and today I'm giving that love a legacy." He turned to Evelyn, dropping to one knee. "Forgive me," he whispered. "Not for the cameras, not for them, just for me." Evelyn's lip trembled. "I forgave you the moment you came back." She bent down, cupped his face, and kissed his forehead, just like she used to when he had nightmares. Behind them, the reporters had gone silent. Not a lens clicked, not a breath moved, because no one wanted to interrupt that moment. Then Chase stepped forward, holding a bouquet of lilies. "For you, Grandma," he said. Evelyn took the flowers. Her arms, though thin, felt strong again. She wrapped them around both father and son. 3 generations, bound by a truth too long buried. And just as the moment settled, a final surprise came. Possibly Levi stepped out, holding up an envelope. "This came through yesterday," he said, handing it to Evelyn, "from the adoption agency." Evelyn opened it slowly. Her hand flew to her mouth. Gregory leaned in. "What is it?" She handed it to him. And inside was a photocopy of a birth certificate. Her name, Evelyn Grace Brooks. And next to it, Gregory Elijah Brooks. He stared. "You changed your name?" Gregory looked stunned. "No, I never legally did." Evelyn's eyes welled. "You never stopped being mine." And neither did he. The sun dipped low behind the old oak tree in front of Pastor Levi's house, casting golden light across Evelyn's wrinkled hands as she clutched the birth certificate to her chest. Gregory still hadn't spoken. He just stared at the paper as if it had cracked open time itself. "Gregory Elijah Brooks," he repeated slowly, like he was tasting the name for the first time. He had spent a lifetime distancing himself from the boy he once was, and yet somehow, beneath all the suits, stock portfolios, and headlines, that name, his real name, had remained untouched, unchanged, hidden, but never erased. "I didn't even know," he whispered. Evelyn nodded. "The woman who adopted you, she must have kept it. Deep down, she must have known it wasn't right to take your name away." Gregory swallowed hard. He looked at his mother, not just as the woman who raised him or the woman he had wronged, but now, finally, as the anchor he had spent his entire life drifting away from. Suddenly, a voice called out behind him. It was Chase, breathless, running across the lawn with something in his hand. His eyes were wide. "You have to come back to the house," he said. "Something's happened." Gregory stiffened. "What is it?" "They're there, the board members, from Delacroix Development, and they're talking about voting you out." Gregory's jaw clenched. Evelyn reached for his arm gently. "You don't have to go if it means losing yourself again." He turned to her, calm No, Mom, I'm not going to fight them. I'm going to tell them the truth. 30 minutes later, Gregory stepped into the grand foyer of the Delacroix estate. Marble floors, a chandelier taller than most trees. Everything about the place screamed wealth, status, power, and none of it meant anything anymore. In the conference room, 7 men and women sat at the table, his executive board. Cold expressions, folded arms, a laptop was open, and a live feed was playing. Gregory saw himself on screen from earlier that day, kneeling before Evelyn, calling her mum in front of the press. Do you understand the damage this could do to our brand? One of the board members snapped. Another leaned forward. We appreciate your sentimentality, but we're not running a charity, Gregory. You publicly handed over our housing initiative to a woman with no business experience. That's irresponsible. Gregory didn't blink. That woman raised me. She gave me everything when she had nothing, and I let you all convince me that shame was easier than truth. He placed the birth certificate on the table. I was Gregory Brooks before I ever became Gregory Delacroix, and I'm done pretending otherwise. There was a tense silence. One board member stood. Then you leave us no choice. We'll begin the vote to remove you as CEO. Chase suddenly burst in, holding up a tablet. Wait. All eyes turned. You might want to watch this first, Chase said, breathless. He played a video. It was Evelyn standing outside the church after the press conference. A crowd of young mothers, seniors, and foster youth had gathered. She was handing out bags of groceries, hugging people, telling stories. She's been doing this for years, Chase said. She didn't need a company to give back. She did it with her bare hands. The screen faded to black. Gregory looked around the room. Fire me if you want, he said. But if this company doesn't stand for the people we claim to serve, then I shouldn't be here anyway. The youngest board member, a woman named Rachel, stood up slowly. I vote to keep him. Heads turned. Rachel's voice was clear. We've built a company with billions in profit, but what he's built today is purpose. And one by one, others followed. Gregory stayed silent, but Evelyn, standing at the doorway, smiled quietly. Weeks later, the Delacroix mansion looked different. Adorned with the sterile grey walls and locked study doors. In their place, soft earth tones, open windows, laughter in the halls. And Evelyn, she now had her own room. Not the servants' quarters. On a guest room. Her nameplate on the door read Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, Founder, Legacy Wing. Every Sunday, she and Gregory hosted dinners. The staff was different now, hired not just for their resumes, but for their hearts. Chase helped serve food. He was learning what it meant to lead with empathy. One evening, after the plates were cleared and the candles had dimmed, Evelyn tucked a blanket over Chase's shoulders as he dozed off on the couch. Gregory watched her. You changed everything, he said softly. Evelyn looked over. No, she replied. You did, the moment you stopped hiding from love. He nodded. Then, from the corner, Chase stirred. Grandma? Yes, baby? When I grow up, can I be like you? She smiled, warm and full of light. You can be better. And for the first time in generations, that future felt possible. Not because of wealth, not because of reputation, but because one man, once broken by silence, chose to speak the truth. Because one mother, once dismissed and discarded, chose to forgive. And because one boy, born into privilege, learned what it meant to be human. The Delacroix name still held power in the city, but now it meant something more. It meant second chances. It meant owning your past, no matter how painful. It meant rebuilding what had been shattered, not with bricks or contracts, but with honesty, humility, and heart. Every week, the Legacy Wing welcomed people just like Evelyn used to be. Tired, overlooked, forgotten. Now they had a place, a voice, a story that mattered. One afternoon, a young girl in foster care walked through those doors. She clutched a tiny red fire truck in her hand, the paint chipped, wheels missing. Gregory knelt beside her, gently holding the toy. My favorite one looked just like this, he smiled. The girl looked up, confused. You had toys like this? He nodded. I had nothing but love and this. Evelyn watched from across the room, eyes glassy. That same fire truck, the one she'd packed away in a cardboard box so many years ago, had somehow become a bridge to someone else's beginning. Because that's the thing about healing. When you finally choose to face the truth, it doesn't just fix your story. It unlocks others too. If you've made it this far, thank you, truly. This story wasn't just about Evelyn or Gregory or Chase. It was about all of us. The parts we hide, the lies we carry, the love we think we've lost forever. Sometimes the people we resent the most are the ones who loved us the deepest. Sometimes the pain we carry isn't because we were unloved, but because no one ever explained the love that was there all along. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone you've lost touch with or someone you owe a call, don't wait. Because truth, when spoken with courage, has the power to heal not just your past, but the future of everyone you love. To us in the comments. Well, what's a moment in your life when forgiveness changed everything? We'd love to hear your story. But if you're more powerful, real stories like this one about family, truth, redemption, and healing, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss the next chapter. From all of us here, thank you for watching, feeling, and growing with us. See you in the next story.